It's been said that prostitution is the oldest profession in the world. And it's true. The exchange of sexual favors for resources or social status predates both civilization and the advent of our species. It's a tradition, an instinct, rooted in women's choosiness due to their drastically shorter reproductive window, which is the driving force of hypergamy as we know it. This instinct is why the feminist premise of patriarchal oppression could not be more absurd. Most gender roles observed throughout history were for the sake of women's protection, and still are whenever they find it to be convenient. We've lived for them, worked for them, fought for them, and died for them for countless generations. And to this very day, we continue to sell out our own welfare and dignity just to keep them happy. No rational mind could observe the state of the world today, see how any woman can exploit and destroy most men effortlessly and with little resistance, and still conclude that men rule this world. But for that same reason, we've allowed the presumption of female victimhood to seep into our cultural zeitgeist over the past 600 years. So deep that most men wouldn't dare to question the supposed oppression of women, even when the message rings like the shaming crack of a whip. Whether or not they choose to use this double standard to their advantage, whether or not they support it morally or ethically, women have known since time immemorial that thirsty men are easily exploited, especially after the bra-burning sexual revolution of the 1960s. And that exploitation has gone through several iterations over the years, all of which still exist today, and most of which don't even involve intercourse. Everything from feminist sex boycotts that manipulate men for political gain, to flirting with men at the bar for free drinks, to stripping for cash and bleeding men of their hard-earned money. And now, a brand new, record-breakingly shameless iteration for the current year. Behold the Thot, a female attention whore who flaunts her body on the internet for desperate men's money and or attention. More specifically to this context, the rainbow-dyed and bedazzled cam whores, quote-unquote cosplayers, and self-proclaimed models bending over for the camera and asking for tips in exchange for patron-exclusive lewds and nudes. They exist in the hundreds, if not thousands, and have been leeching off of desperate men ever since the invention of the webcam. Despite feminism's former and current condemnation of pornography, they've gained a massive influx of all legal ages, shapes, and sizes ever since Carol Lee emboldened their doublethink with a shiny new politically correct label, sex workers. Because, quote, sex work is real work, and feminists are quick to drop their moral outrage as soon as they find out that something they once found objectionable is empowering women to exploit men. That is, of course, until their real work comes with very real taxes. Enter hashtag Thot Audit, one of the funniest shitstorms I've seen in a long time, and it's well deserved. This has been going on for a little over 2 weeks now, but for those of you who don't know, Thot Audit began when the now legendary David Wu tweeted links to the IRS website, urging men to use them to report profiting thoughts of every stripe for tax fraud and tax evasion. And now, over 17,000 shares later, the feminist butthurt is palpable.
I'm Mr. Entitled. Oh, Mr. Entitled. You're a white man!
Now, as I understand it, the immediate sentiment behind this hashtag was in many men's waning patience for those thoughts commandeering and ruining every social media platform that would allow it, including, but not limited to, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and especially Twitch. Particularly among male game streamers who take exception to the fact that these thoughts make a mockery of the pastime and command orders of magnitude more followers and patrons with none of the skill or personality required. On top of that, knowing these thoughts are their bread and butter, Twitch gives special exemption from its own rules in favor of any attractive female streamer who brings in a substantial amount of profit, even if they bring no content to the table except for a display of cleavage and short shorts.
Everybody knows that Twitch themselves are very sexist. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no kind of sort of maybe, well, what about this? No, they're a very sexist company, and they don't even try to hide their cards. They just throw them out in your face and tell you what the fuck you're going to do about it. And there are certain streamers who are so aware, and they know that they have this shield protecting them at all times, that they're bold enough to go on streams and tell people that I'm safe as fuck and there's nothing you can do about it.
On my back the whole time, like, hey, it's okay, you know, just delete the clips, you know, we're cool. I've been good with Twitch. I've never even...
Why? How come when I show nudity they don't tell me that? They just ban me. What the fuck? So if you go on to the mess that is the IRL section, it's predominantly dominated by female streamers pretty much flashing tits and doing squats for subs. Here's a good example. This is a streamer named Pink Sparkles. She even self-admits to being a titty streamer, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But Twitch's rules prohibit something like this. They explicitly say no overtly sexual behavior. If you're labeling yourself a titty streamer, doesn't that kind of indicate the nature of your content is overtly sexual? And that's all the content there is. She doesn't do anything. This whole stream was her just kind of wiggling around out of her seat, doing squats occasionally, and mainly just eating a fucking sandwich.
We need to put an end to this. We need to stop the thotting.
Naughty hey guys, future man national like woo dude.
Yeah, like that wasn't totally planned. Yeah, my bad, guys. I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to spill all the champagne all over my tank top so it gets wet and you guys could see through it.
You said yourself, we should hold you accountable, right? We should hold Twitch accountable this year. You want us to make sure you are accountable for your actions and make sure that you're enforcing your rules fairly, but to be honest with you, I don't think you're accountable for anything. I don't think you give a shit about anything. To be honest with you, it only seems like you're accounting for the money you're making off of these Twitch thoughts you're protecting.
So far, detractors have come in two distinct flavors. The indifferent and retarded snitches get stitches mentality, which has only ever resulted in the unchecked spread of corruption. And of course, the reeing feminists who are blaming, quote, incels for, quote, ruining their lives. As if incels aren't the only ones desperate enough to keep their coffers lined with gold, and as if they are somehow uniquely entitled to exemption from federal income tax law. But let's park it at incels for a second. However well-intentioned the coining of that term may have been, it has since devolved into an insult used against men with low self-esteem and despair for their perceived lack of appeal to women. Without knowing anything of their individual motives or desires, these men already have no recourse on either side of this debate. To the left, they are likened to the entitlement and violence of Elliot Rodger and villainized as such. To the right, they are lumped in with white knights, labeled Captain Save-A-Ho, and derided for upholding the romantic virtues of the classic gentlemen we used to promote and respect. You know, before feminism finally ruined the state of gender relations for the current generation. If we want to understand where these thoughts have come from, and how they've secured as much influence as they have, we need to acknowledge a very basic fact that is seldom discussed. As much as it makes you cringe, as much as it makes your brainstem itch to even consider it, men have feelings too. And a great many of those men never saw any appeal in today's shallow hookup culture or its one-night stands. These men prefer classic romance and entertain dreams of white picket fences. You can reject them, you can make fun of them, you can ignore them. But like it or not, these men exist. And so does their natural predator, which gave rise to the cam whores we're talking about right now. And she's still running strong right beside them. Before the internet allowed these shameless thoughts to sell their bodies in bulk without getting their hands dirty, women like them had to swindle their way to a dishonest living one man at a time. And these men, the socially awkward nerds with relatively pure and innocent relationship goals, have always been their prey. They come to these men playing the victim, pretending that they want to be saved by a nice guy in some capacity, even while that term has become a dirty word for so many. More often than not, this kind of guy isn't used to receiving any positive attention from women. He often has little to no experience in that regard, and because of that, he hasn't yet been jaded enough to recognize when he's being used. He wears his heart on his sleeve, which, as most men know, advertises his weakness. And she will use his good intentions against him. She will make him feel loved and needed, and then use that as leverage to squeeze him for every penny and ego-boosting compliment she can before she tosses him in the trash bin, never caring about the damage she left in her wake. Because once she realizes that there will be no retribution or recompense for what she's done, since people will be too busy making fun of him to pay her any mind, it suddenly becomes very convenient for her when she looks good in a low-cut top and can cry on cue. This is where these thoughts come from, and by extension, where the incels supporting them come from. Women like this can now display themselves in live stream and rake in donations from the men who are competing with their wallets just to hear her say their names, because they believe that's the only attention they can ever expect from a woman and the only way they can expect to get it. These women prey on the weak, and their numbers are growing, because most women are only one shameless decision away from never having to work another day in their lives, regardless of their empowered place in the modern workplace. These thoughts exist because these incels are complacent, and they are complacent because the rest of the world offers them no sympathy or help. The reality is that this hashtag probably won't amount to much. It'll likely produce more memes than actual audits because most people can't be bothered to fill out such a long and tedious form, even if there is cash incentive behind it. But for those who are truly sick of these selfish, self-righteous, self-made centerfolds dominating social media and society at large, there are things that need to change. To the more confident men in MGTOW in my audience, take it easy on these incels. They're starved for affection and they're hurting. They don't know any better. Just realize that before feminism ruined everything, many, many more of us used to think the way they think. It's in our nature. If you must say something to them, then think about what you're trying to achieve. Help them see what you see and grow out of this slump they're in. And to the incels, take it from one of your own. No woman is worth your worship or that pedestal you put her on. Not every woman is like the Thots who will use you and abuse you, but the women who are worth your time don't want a slave. They want a partner. Yes, the dating game is rigged in their favor, and yes, it is unfair. Life is unfair. But if you want to find that special someone, you need to be worth her time too. So know your worth, find your self-respect, and if you're dreaming of wedding bells, for the love of God, don't fall for that hoe over there, because debt is a joint liability, and that hoe owes taxes. Keep this hashtag rolling, guys, to whatever end. Let these selfish, spoiled bitches know that it's time to pay their dues. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what you saw here, have a look at my other videos and leave me your thoughts in the comments. If you support my message, then please like, favorite, and subscribe. If you'd like to help this channel improve, you can reach out to me on Twitter or on Facebook with any suggestions. And if you'd like to support me more directly, please consider following me on Patreon. Links in the description. Thanks again, and I'll catch you all in my next video.